Well, after about 2 or 3 years, the writing became easier and easier to do until eventually I could more or less just sit down and do the writing at will, although I couldn't always get who I wanted to write for me. And then the writings or the messages began to come in different languages, foreign languages. And as I can only speak French, I think this surprised rather a lot of people, especially when I received messages in Arabic and Russian.
I had all the foreign scripts translated. The Arabic script I sent to the American University of Beirut, where Professor Suhail Bushrui translated and analyzed them. He was so interested that he came to London and presented us with some very startling facts. Apparently, these scripts were written by 5 different people from entirely different cultural backgrounds. Also, all the scripts referred to a person called George Lang, who apparently had been murdered in Saudi Arabia. I made subsequently inquiries about this person, George Lang, at the Saudi Arabian embassy and other authorities, but as soon as I mentioned the name, nobody wanted to know, and I couldn't get very much further. The most intriguing case is there are 15 letters or messages signed by Kephalos Nectarios. He was a bishop in the Greek Orthodox Church who died in 1920 and was made a saint in the Greek Orthodox Church in 1961. These messages are all addressed to Archbishop Athenagoras, the present metropolitan of the Greek Orthodox Church in Great Britain. It would be far too complicated to go into the details and contents of these letters, but His Eminence, the Archbishop, studied them very carefully and subsequently issued a statement which was then published all over Europe. And this is partly what he said in the statement. The case of Matthew Manning is beyond any form of logical investigation. I can positively say that the young man has been in no position to know of certain things which were contained in those messages. And when asked by a journalist why he thought that Bishop Nectarios was sending messages through an outsider, His Eminence answered, "I have always accepted that God has many ways in sending messages to his people, even to his archbishops."
And the other person who interested me was somebody called Robert Webb, and I had a lot of writing from this man. And we then went to the Public Records Office in Cambridge and found that this man had actually lived in this house between about 1680 to when he died in 1733. I then had to do a project for school. It was a history project, and I decided to do a project on 18th century social life, and I decided that I was going to concentrate on Robert Webb. And I hadn't got much information about him. I'd been to the Public Records Office and they couldn't help me much because most of the documents had been lost through floodwater. And it was about this time, when I needed a lot more information to make up the project, that Robert Webb said in some automatic writing that he would supply all the names that were missing that I needed. And he said that there were about 500. From that moment on, in this room, which at that time was my bedroom, my bed was along here, these names began to appear. And we came in one morning and we found this Robert Webb scrawled across the wall. We shut the room up again. And we came back about 10 minutes later and there was another one scrawled on the wall, and which was also Robert Webb. These signatures continued to appear at the rate of 70 or 80 each day until we got about 500 all over the door and the walls and even on the ceiling. It was interesting to note that every signature was dated. Nobody actually ever saw the signatures appear, but one only had to leave the room empty for 5 minutes or so, and then we'd come back and find more signatures. I started to number the signatures and also put big letters up on the wall so that it would make documentation easier. We were all amused when a new signature appeared, utilizing the letter T that I'd put up on the wall to write the name Thomas Buck. One night we found in this old-fashioned handwriting on the door, signed by Robert Webb, "Zeno, hearing a young man speak too freely says for this reason we have 2 ears and 1 tongue, because we should hear much and speak little." The next morning we all came down to breakfast and observed at the place usually occupied by myself a flyleaf from a book. Upon this flyleaf was repeated with the same misspellings and in the same handwriting the quotation that earlier had appeared on my door. Upon the reverse side in a different hand was inscribed, "Thomas Coas, write this on the last day of July 31st, 1791. The date when the message appeared on the door was 31st of July, 1971. Over the last few years, I've had literally hundreds of messages in automatic writing from Robert Webb, and the last one of which I received this afternoon actually while we were filming. I wrote down, what do you think of all these lights that are in your house? He replied, such pretty lights as I never see in mine house. And such a pretty light on mine stairs. Oh, for some pretty light in mine bedchamber. Oh, and such many persons in mine house. So I then reminded him that it was not his house, but our house. Never have I heard the like of such nonsense, he said. Off with you. And then he signed his name very angrily, Robert Webb, in big scrawly writing. Well, as well as the automatic writing that I do, I also get a lot of automatic drawing. Many of these are signed by well-known artists, like Dürer, Picasso, Rowlandson, Klee. I don't always get drawings, of course, from people whose work I like. I get a lot of drawings from Picasso, and I don't like his work, and I don't like him doing drawings through me. I find him a very aggressive artist, and I rather feel he likes to dominate me. And somebody like Dürer, who is another artist who I've had a lot of drawings from, is completely the opposite. Dürer is much more delicate and gentle than Picasso, who has on occasions even smashed my pens. Beardsley is an interesting artist. When he draws, he always makes a mistake and then will proceed to black it over or turn it into something else. Of course, not all the drawings are signed by well-known artists. A lot of them are unsigned, and there are also many with signatures of artists whom we have not yet managed to trace, including the drawings of birds, which I've most liked doing. These drawings always start from the centre and then work out towards the edges. I always find it interesting to do these drawings because I never know until the picture is finished what I'm going to draw. It's a bit like having a magic painting book where you just put on the water and the picture appears. Only here, I just start drawing and I don't know what I'm going to draw. And then the drawing just appears. They're also drawn at a speed which is far faster, I'm sure, than most normal artists can draw. The drawing I did for this film took only about 7 minutes.
Incredible? Well, there are aspects of Matthew's psychic ability we have not covered. For example, his ability to bend a metal object with a touch. But we now have a scientific update on Matthew from studies on him made by a group of leading scientists.
We've done 2 experiments with Matthew, looking at his brain waves while he is bending keys or bending forks. Now, what we did was we hooked up an EEG machine. This is essentially an amplifier for looking at brain waves. And we used a special electrode arrangement that we've developed. The particular way that the experiment was done, we had Matthew just sitting in a chair with his eyes open, relaxing, and then with his eyes closed, relaxing. Then I would give him a key and ask him to do whatever he does. Whatever goes on inside his head, when he bends the key, that's what I would ask him to do. Now, at the moment that he would bend the key, just the 10 seconds, just preceding that moment, we had some very interesting findings in his brain waves. It's something that has never been seen before in a natural experiment like this, in that the pattern of the brain waves was like a ramp function. At the low frequencies on his brain waves were in high amplitude, and the higher frequencies were very much attenuated. And that's a curious finding. It's curious because that particular ramp function is produced by only one group of cells in the brain. And that group of cells is called the nucleus accumbens. Perhaps for the first time, we may have a glimpse as to where in the brain this particular psychic ability is being controlled. And that's a breakthrough.
As a general rule, I think it could be dangerous trying to
can tell things. People who have natural psychic abilities and feel confident about using them, it's all right for them to do things, but I'm a little dubious about whether people who can't control these things should try and do so.
The two questions that I'm asked most frequently are A, do you consider yourself a spiritualist? And B, what are you going to do with yourself in the future? Well, the answer to the first question is that I don't consider myself a spiritualist. I would say that I'm a spiritist. A spiritist is somebody who believes that one can communicate with the dead. A spiritualist is somebody who turns that belief into a quasi-religion. I don't intend becoming a full-time metal bender or spoon bender. I can't think of anything more banal than bending spoons for the rest of my life. I don't intend becoming a full-time medium either. That doesn't agree with my views, because I don't think one should make money out of gifts such as I have.
Yogis and yogurt, enzymes and ESP, psychics and psychokinesis. The many powers that exist in all of us. Just now being explored and tested, explained. What answers will soon be ours? What new powers will we someday prove and own? The dark recesses of the mind are slowly finding a new dawn.
We will return to Beyond Belief on TNT Link.
You know where to get a bite without a big bill in Rome. You know where to get the best rate on Belgian, French, and Swiss francs. You know tipping isn't required anywhere in Japan. And now you know the convenient way to get MCI's best international savings. With MCI World Savings, select as many numbers as you like, and you'll always get one low rate 24 hours a day to each country. MCI World, for citizens of the world.
One low rate 24 hours a day. It's so civilized.
You Americans do not know how to eat French fries.
What do you put on them?
Mayonnaise, of course.
I prefer a delicate red sauce.
A nice Barolo for the table, huh?
Please, bring these two some sake.
Who's cellular?
Not mine.
Hello? It's Andrea.
Hello, Andrea. She's still in Sydney?
Andrew is in Sydney. Andrea's in Quebec.
She's marrying a Dutchman, you know.
Well, we're all going, aren't we?
Yes, but to Amsterdam or Quebec.
When? It will be Montreal or Las Vegas.
Las Vegas?
She's going to elope?
With an Elvis impersonator.
A bientôt. She wants you all to call her.
You know who makes the best papadum in Kensington. You know where to find a puppet show in Rome every afternoon, except Wednesday. You know rugby, cricket, football, bocce, and baseball. And now you know how to get clear, fast connections virtually anywhere there's a phone. With MCI World, you get unsurpassed service to 280 countries and places, everywhere you want to call. MCI World, for citizens of the world.
So, what's everyone getting the happy couple,
I know. Expensive French champagne.
So come on as to where while they're drinking the champagne.
Puccini's greatest operas.
Any ideas? Call me. I'll be in London next week.
I've got it.
What?
A Yorkshire Terrier pup.
Why?
Not to keep them up the whole wedding night.
Yeah, that's cold.
I got MCI when I first came here. My English wasn't great, but I knew with MCI I could always get customer service in my language.
My sister lives in Moscow. My best friend lives in Saudi Arabia. It's good to know I can always get help if I need it.
Connections, always clear and fast, no matter where I call. I'm in LA, I call Mama in Positano, she thinks I'm in Sanremo.
Let's face it, MCI pioneered the whole idea of savings on international calls. I get one low rate, 24 hours a day, to all the numbers I've selected.
I'll drink to that. Waiter?
You know if you want to shop in Rome, you have to wait until September. In August, everyone's on vacation. You know you have to wait until November for the Beaujolais Nouveau to arrive in Paris. You know when it's rush hour in Killarney, you have to wait in traffic. And now you know you don't have to wait to get MCI's best international savings. With MCI World Savings, select as many numbers as you like and you'll always get one low rate 24 hours a day to each country. MCI World, for citizens of the world.
No waiting until the wee hours to get MCI's best rate. I get it any time, every day, to all the international numbers I've selected.
But it isn't just the savings. MCI lets me earn frequent flyer miles. I'll do anything for miles.
Is that why you picked this restaurant? Garçon, the frequent flyer miles come with a crème brûlée.
Big fun, but guess who's flying to Osaka next week? Free.
Ooh, take me with you.
You wish.
With MCI, you can earn 5 miles for every dollar you spend. And on some of the world's best airlines.
You earn free miles when you use your MCI card, too.
I used my MCI card to track you guys down all over the world.
Hello.
You keep calling and you're on your way to a free trip to Andrea's wedding.
Wherever it is.
You know the best way from Terminal A to D in Frankfurt. You know how to pack one suitcase for 3 countries. You know where to get the morning paper the night before in Rome. And now you know the simple way to call another country from almost anywhere in the world. Because the MCI card gives you worldwide access and an operator who speaks your language. MCI World, for citizens of the world.
Who does make the best Papadom in Kensington?
And why do you Yanks insist on calling football soccer?
And how do you save on the Paris Metro?
Via carnet, of course.
Yeah. What's the damage, Wendy?
Well, that depends. In Japan, tipping isn't required.
I like that.
With MCI World, you get clear, fast connections to 280 countries and places, customer service in 11 languages, 24-hour customer service, the MCI card with worldwide access, 5 frequent flyer miles for every dollar, and with MCI World Savings, you get one low rate 24 hours a day to each country. Call 1-800-777-5000 and find out how you can join our world.
You know who I am. Just tell me. Robert Urich is the Lazarus Man. Monday nights at 10 and Saturdays at noon on TNT.
There was a time I had trouble getting around. I had to depend on others to help me. Now it feels great to have independence with a Rascal scooter from Electric Mobility.
If you or someone you know needs low-cost personal transportation, call this number for a free catalog on Rascal 3- and 4-wheel electric scooters. The Rascal is so easy to operate, you can control it with just one hand. Plus, your Rascal is portable with a unique take-apart frame. Take advantage of our money-saving offers, easy payment plan, free test ride, and see if you qualify for partial or, in some cases, full medical insurance reimbursement.
Call now for a free, no-obligation in-home demonstration. Call toll-free 1-800-537-7506. That's 1-800-537-7506 for a free demonstration and more information. 1-800-537-7506.
And now, back to Beyond Belief on TNT Link.
Spiritualism, psychokinesis, reincarnation, psychic healing. All these extraordinary phenomena have puzzled mankind for thousands of years. Some now say that the secret to all these things will be revealed to us by extraterrestrials. Thousands of people from all different parts of our Earth claim to have seen unidentified flying objects. Some even claim to have been contacted by the creatures inside these UFOs.
Thursday night, I believe it was October the 11th, myself and a friend of mine were fishing on the Pascagoula River by the old Saltpeter shipyard on the west side of the river. And I don't know, it just seemed to be all of a sudden that one of us looked around and heard something like a zip noise. And it just appeared that it was some type of spacecraft, and we saw a blue flashing light. And almost immediately, they seemed like the end of the craft opened up some way, and 3 things came out of it. I don't know. I mean, I still can't say whether it was beings or robots or what it was, but and they approached us almost immediately, and 2 of them took hold of my arms, and I seemed to just raise up to the level that they were, which they were about a foot or a foot and a half off of the ground, and they carried me inside of the spacecraft.
This is Charles Hickson, a Mississippi shipyard worker who claims to have encountered an unidentified flying object, a UFO, in 1973. Two eminent scientists later placed him under hypnosis and concluded that he was telling the truth. Shortly after World War II, on June 24th, 1947, pilot Kenneth Arnold reported seeing a cylindrically shaped flying object in the sky which looked like a flying saucer. Since then, thousands of similar sightings have been made around the world, and the mysterious spacecraft have become known as UFOs.
It was exactly 8:05 p.m. when Air Defense Command received word that a mysterious light was hovering low on the horizon, just northeast of Rapid City, South Dakota. Radar operators at Ellsworth Air Force Base shifted their attention to the northeast quadrant of the sky and immediately picked up an unidentified target. Air Traffic Control quickly contacted an F-84 patrolling in the west, asked for an interception, and vectored the jet toward the UFO. A moment later, the jet's radar picked up the unidentified return and locked on. The plane was just 3 miles from its target when the light suddenly moved away with a fantastic burst of speed. The pursuit lasted for 120 miles, but the jet could not gain on the object. Finally, the pilot abandoned the chase. At ground control, the fascinated radar men watched the unknown object change direction and trailed the jet back to the airfield.
Although science has failed to supply a generally accepted explanation of these phenomena, the subject has been investigated by the United States government, including a committee of the United States Congress. Congressman J. Edward Rausch of Indiana is chairman of the House Committee on Science and Astronautics. Congressman, do you believe the UFOs are fact or fiction?
Well, I hesitate in answering the question only because of this. I don't know, and that's my problem. I don't know whether they are fact or fiction.
Have you seen any films or photos of UFOs?
I have not seen film. I have seen photos which purport to be UFOs. A few years ago, I conducted a symposium here on Capitol Hill, and the participants of this symposium were scientists of some renown. And they were scientists who had an interest in UFOs. And during the course of that symposium, photos were presented. No motion picture film, but photos were presented which purported to be UFOs.
Do you know Dr. Robert Baker?
Well, I know a Dr. Robert M.L. Baker, Jr., who testified before the House Committee on Science and Astronautics in 1968 and presented some fascinating testimony on UFOs.
The next two films are from the files of the Smithsonian Institute in Washington, D.C., and Dr. Baker has analyzed and evaluated them.
Next, we have the Montana 1950 film showing two bright objects. It was taken about 11:30 a.m. Mountain Standard Time in August 1950 by Nicholas Mariana at Great Falls, Montana. Now, the natural phenomena here that is often given as the source of these images is airplane reflections. Airplanes, unless they were moving at fantastic speeds, would have to be so close to the observer to be identified as airplanes in order for them to portray the kind of motion seen on the film. So this I really don't concede to be airplanes, airplane reflections, comets, and some of the other things.
In 1952, several UFOs were sighted and photographed by Delbert Newhouse, a Navy photographer near Tremont in Utah. He estimated that there were about a dozen or so of the objects. They were the color of gunmetal and were shaped like two saucers, one inverted on the top of another. The explanation, that the camera was out of focus or that the objects were a flock of soaring gulls, has not been confirmed or denied by experts who have evaluated the film. Dr. Baker had this to say.
And birds simply don't make those kinds of accelerated turns at the high speeds that they would have to be moving. There also exists meteorological data that would indicate that this probably wasn't the time when you have birds that can maintain flight for long periods of time simply spiraling.
They gave me, I guess, some type of examination. I don't know what it was, but it seemed to be maybe some kind of an eye or something that it kept floating back and forth over my body, which it didn't ever touch my body. And then I seemed to be floating on the inside. I didn't touch anything in there that I know of. And then later on, they carried me back outside and released me. And it seems like it was almost immediately again. I heard the little noise, the zipping noise, and the blue light was still flashing, and the craft was just almost immediately gone.
How do scientists explain these phenomena? Are they distorted visions of high-flying birds, insects, airplane reflections, wandering weather balloons, mirages, optical illusions, hallucinations, meteorites, the planet Venus? Or are they really little green men from another vastly superior solar system? This is Stanton T. Friedman, nuclear physicist and lecturer, the only American scientist devoting full time to the study of UFOs. Mr. Friedman, you have been studying UFOs for 15 years.